So the original sin is top of mind, being talked about because, obviously there were certain folks that were mistreated. They were enslaved. They were brought to the United States against their will, sold by their fellow black people in Africa. Shh. Let's not talk about that. They were sold, they were enslaved. We fought a civil fucking war to free men and women who were enslaved. Because that is the right thing to do. You cannot own another person. And that was severely fucked up thinking in our past. Now, Abraham Lincoln, who currently, apparently, has become, well, evil. We want to tear down his statues because he was the president during the Civil War. Now, let me tell you a little story about Hamster and his relatives. My grandmother's relatives came to the United States, late 1700s, early 1800s. My grand and grand-uncles and granddaddies fought for the Union in the Civil War to free the slaves. Now, Uncle Jed is in an unmarked grave somewhere because he gave his life fighting for the Union, fighting to remove slavery. Now, if you want to talk about oppression, you want to talk about, 200 years ago, thus and such, let's fucking go back a little farther. Why is it, do you think, my friends, we stop at 200 years ago? Anyone? Bueller? Why would you think that would be? Well, because, let me tell you, my relatives were enslaved by other white people. Shh. No. Don't talk about that. It's only the B people that we need to worry about from 200 years ago. Let me tell you something. You ready? Sitting down, are you? My father was from Hungary. Every fucking war, every conquest, every bit of bad shit that happened in Europe happened in Hungary. Ghengis Khan. You know what Ghengis Khan would do when he invaded Hungary? Just for grins. You know what he'd do? Anyone? He would kill everybody in a village. He'd come upon a village, 1,000 people. He'd kill everyone. Don't even want to know what happened to the women. He would leave one man alive, and he would give that man a horse. And Ghengis Khan would say, go to the next village and tell them what happened here. And tell them that what happened here will happen there if they do not submit to Ghengis Khan. Well, that had quite an effect. Most of the villages from then on didn't resist. And, it was a bad day for the women's, but it was a really bad day for the men. If they weren't killed, if they were old, young, they had some infirmity, they were, sick, they didn't last very long. But the ones that did survive were enslaved by Ghengis Khan. Now, let me have a sip of my beer. Should I demand reparations from Mongolia? Should I say, hey, you enslaved my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, and you did certain things to my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother? Is that a valid thing to ask? This was, 1500, 14 something? Let's not even talk about the fucking Turks. You've heard the story of Vlad the Impaler, have you? Dracula. You've heard that. Transylvania, Romania, Hungary. Evil, wasn't he? He was an evil, blood-sucking, fucking scum. Was he now, though? Or did Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Dracul, was he trying to save his people from the onslaught of the Turks, who were trying to take over my home country? 16-something? No, because white people are privileged, aren't we? So when you hear the stories of Vlad the Impaler, you see movies, books, chop the heads off of the invaders and put them on pikes. Thousands, tens of thousands, to show the invaders this is what he was made of. What you don't hear is what the Turks did. You think Vlad the Impaler was the bad guy? He was the evil doer. He was the one who we write movies about in books. You don't even want to know what the Turks did when they invaded. Shh. Privileged white dudes in Hungary. My father came over here to the United States in 1956 or 7. You know what he had to do to come to the United States after his country was occupied by communists? The Soviet Socialist Republic of Hungary. Do you know? Do you care? Of course not, because he was white. My grandfather came to the United States in 1921. His parents wanted to escape the Weimar Republic. And eventually, you know who. Because they weren't stupid. They were Jews. They knew what was coming. They could read it in the books that were published. But they were white people, so they were privileged, weren't they? When will this madness end? Is it a check? Is that it? You want a check because something happened 300 fucking years ago, and you think you deserve it because of something that happened to your relatives, something that happened to your great-great-great-great-grandfather. Really? Well, I've got a big bunch of shit we could talk about. Ghengis Khan, the Turks, every other warring tribe in history enslaved, murdered my relatives. Do I want to check? Do I think that would be sufficient? Give me a check. I'll be happy from now. I don't want a fucking check. You know why that is? Because that happened hundreds of fucking years ago. A lot of bad shit happened way before we were born. And some folks today say, well, if you give me a check, it'll relieve the original sin. Why don't you ask for a check from the tribes who sold your ancestors? Let's think about that for a minute. What countries were they? Well, they were all in Africa. Why don't you ask them for reparations? No, that's not it, because that's not what you really mean. Everyone has a story. Look at the Scots, enslaved by the English. Look at the Irish, enslaved by the English. Look at the XYZ, enslaved by the Romans. It happened in history. The Barbary pirates, what the fuck do you think they were doing? Why did Thomas Jefferson decide to create a navy to fight the Barbary pirate? Anyone? They were kidnapping people and enslaving them. We could go on and on. If that's the game you want to play, well, then where's my fucking check? All of our ancestors were fucked in some way. But somehow you think you're special. Because of what? Here's my answer to your protestations. Fuck you. You live in the most free, the least racist, the country with the greatest opportunity for everyone. and you're still fucking bitching about it. James Maxwell, thank you for listening.